Welcome to another demo on the capabilities of UiPath Test Suite. Today we'll discuss about synthetic test data. First, about generating it and storing it in the simplest way, in an Excel file. We'll also get to see how to consume it. Let's start with a question. Why do we need synthetic test data? Well, test automation shouldn't be only about automatically executing test cases. We believe that we should automate everything that can be automated, and generating test data can be one of them, with the dedicated activities in Studio Pro. It's okay to start testing as early as possible with pre-built data, but there comes a time when you want to see whether random data is processed in the ways you expect. There's no reason to prepare that data manually. This activity package in Studio Pro is meant to cover everything we may need in terms of data generation. For example, an address, or a name, or random numbers, strings, and values. There's an activity for each of these, and there are some activities here for working with test data queues. It's a feature we'll get to see in the next demo. For now, let's see how the data generation activities work. For example, given name. This randomly generates a first name, which we can then store in a variable we can create in the Properties panel, like this. Same goes for last name. Let's also see the random number activity. This allows some customization. For example, we can establish a range for the random number by setting a maximum and a minimum. If we configure it like this, we'll get a random number between 10 and 100 stored in this variable. The synthetic data generation will happen when the workflow is run. Let's now see a test case which uses the data generation activities. This verifies the loan application process in UI Bank. And there are different outcomes. There's obviously the happy path, in which the loan is approved. But there's also the case in which the applicant is too young, or the loan amount is too high, or the loan term exceeds the maximum. And we can generate test data for all these scenarios. For the loan application process, we will use the UI Bank user interface. But as you can imagine, the synthetic test data generation can be used as early as possible, in API testing phase, or even in database testing. No matter the stage, the inputs and outputs are the same. We're entering the email address, the amount, the term, the yearly income, and the age of the applicant. The output is the approval or rejection of the loan. Back to Studio Pro. For each of the scenarios earlier, we want to generate a set of synthetic data. The set should be random, but within the parameters we set. For example, in the scenario where the user is too young, we're generating random data for all the input fields, stored in variables, and adding it as a row in an Excel file that we will use as a data variation file. If we look at the age activity here, which is in fact a random number activity, we see that the minimum and maximum are set to 15 and 17, respectively. The assign activity reflects the expected outcome of the test case execution with the respective set. In this case, we're expecting a rejection. This is why we're assigning the sorry value to the message. For the loan too high and the very long-term cases, we're setting the generated loan amount and term respectively to be above some values we set. We're then storing all the data sets in this Excel file in the project folder. Okay, we can now run this workflow that simply generates all these data sets we've been talking about. The test data is now ready. Let's check it out. So, the first set is the one with the applicant which is too young. The second one has the amount too high. The third has the loan term above limits. Finally, the fourth one is for the happy path. Great. Let's now see the test case. This invokes the apply for a loan workflow. Then it gets the result and verifies it against the value in the message column. Before running it, we need to add the test data to our test case, browse for the file, and import the sets. Now let's run it with all the data variations. Let's log out since our test case also logs in. It is now running. And it's done. Now, in the output panel, we can see that all the verifications have passed. This means that the outcomes were the ones expected, even if we used random data sets. That's it for today. In our next video, we'll get to see how we can use synthetic test data with Orchestrator test data queues. Until next time.